Hi everyone, welcome to day 3 of the Fintech tour. My name is Sagar Shah, I'm part of the Fintech Saudi team. It is a pleasure to have you all here. We've had an excellent day 1 and day 2, and I'm really excited about the first English session for Fintech Tour 21. And I'm really looking forward to this session because it's on a topic which we probably don't discuss enough, but we should do. It's about creating an innovation culture, a mindset, and how this is a game changer in financial services. Just want to check. Can everyone hear me okay? If you could just message in the chat box. Great. Thanks, Derek. So I'm really pleased to have Derek Aris with us here today. Derek is the head of innovation education at Lightbulb Capital. He's responsible for building a whole bunch of different areas, including creativity, design thinking, technology, culture, and the mindset conducive for innovation in finance. He also teaches Innovation Culture Catalyst program at the Singapore Management University, which we're really pleased to have SMU as a partner for FinTech Tour 21 this year as well. As ever, we love questions, so please do write any questions that you have in the chat box or in the Q&A, and we'll go through as many as we can. As I mentioned, we are going to start with a quick exercise, so you've got about 15 seconds to go and get a paper and a pen ready, so we can start with that. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Derek to share your screen, and you can start doing the presentation.
Oh, great. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Oh, good. Great. Good. Okay. Thank you, Sagar, and thank you, team, especially for having me here. Let me do a quick setup so we're good to go. Can you guys see that okay? Is that good? All right. So those are the slides. Great. And welcome. So yes, innovation, culture, catalyst, and mindset, the game changer in financial services. First, welcome. Thank you very much for everyone's time, especially over lunchtime, right? So always an important time to grab lunch and get a little bit of information into you. This session itself, it's going to be informative. It's also going to be casual. So, please feel free to ask any questions in the chat box. We've got some time left at the end of the session as well for Q&A. One of the things that may be disappointing or may be really exciting is I'm going to be asking you questions throughout the actual presentation itself. So there's true and false questions, there's questions of what you think. So if you want to feel comfortable with the chat box side of things, do that. And if not, just ask to unmute yourself, and then we'll get the team to give you an unmute if there's a burning question you really want to ask during the actual session itself. Does that sound good? All right, give me an overall thumbs up if that works for you. I know some people can hear me, some people are visually not tuned in, and I get that there's lots of variations. But having said that, let's get on with the presentation itself. First, in the Q&A box, I've got a couple of exercises for you. Oh, great. I've got a couple of thumbs up. Oh, you guys rock. Look at this. I can see it streaming in. So I want you to go to the Q&A box, and just in the first minute, I want you to pay a compliment to everyone that's attending. So, I'm looking at the number of participants that are there. And here's some things you can write down, like, hey, you're looking good on a scale of 1 to 10. You're an 11. Here you are. You rock. Please, I'm curious to see how many people are into typing and chatting, because I can't really tell. So let me see how it's going here. And we're going to give everyone this opportunity, and people go, oh, wow, okay, we've already got it starting. Good, nice. A quick hello, glad to be here. You can fib and you can say, wow, you look great today. They can do that too. Yeah, okay, it's great. You are great. Yeah, you are awesome. See, I love it. Glad to be here. Go. All right, we're smoking through this. Look at this stuff. Excellent. Now, I have to tell you, one of the reasons I asked this is because I want to see whether or not people feel comfortable in using chat. See, I can never tell until I've got that. Like, got 113 people. Hey, you guys rock. Nice glasses. Yeah, that's it. Okay, you are strong. Good. Nice smile. Excellent. Good. This is fantastic. All right, good. Not a bad start. So look, out of 100 people, I think we got quickly about 20. So that's all right. Not now, but what I want you to do is I want you to think about doing this. And now that you're a little bit more comfortable with typing in the chat stuff. I know that at least 30 to 40 of you are cool with that. Now I'm going to go on to another little bit of an exercise. And okay, so well done. You guys are good. And yes, just like the last comment I'm reading, amazing vibes coming from you guys. So let's keep up the good work here. This intro is meant to be interesting, and we're going to wrap it up very quite positively. It's the best of times and the worst of times. What I mean by that is, look, if you look at some research, so there's some Gallup research that was done in 2015, right? A longitudinal study, and a recent one came out in 2019, and it basically said that over 75% of the people around the world are not engaged at work. Okay, so that's what they said. And then the other thing that they said was 80% of the jobs that are going to be coming around are going to change, right? When they say not exist, it means they're going to change into something different. So I think that's all good news, but I'll tell you why. Because innovation is coming into its forefront these days. Innovation meaning the creation of new value in businesses and getting people to think creatively. And if people start thinking more about how they can improve things, how they can work on problems and deal with challenges, that's fine for the existing jobs to be taken up by robotics and automation and standardization, because there's all these new ones that are going to be coming up for us, right? And I'm going to show you a couple of ways that we need to work on to actually build this type of culture and this type of belief system. First, if you need a crash course on innovation, this is one of my favorite models. Now, I'm going to talk to you a little quickly about it, but you'll get the sense of it, right? Basically, and it's taken from a gentleman by the name of Nathan Furr, who did some work in INSEAD. But essentially, what he did was he said, look, innovation, and this is the same for pretty much all innovation processes, it starts with this thing called an insight. So you can see where it says insight. And then as insight is like you're observing stuff, you're checking what's going on in the world around you. And then the next component of that is you see that there's problems and challenges that you want to address. And you go, how do my insights connect with these problems and challenges that I want to solve? Once you do that, you go, if I can take those ideas that I've got in my head and I'm looking at these problems, I could build a prototype, a sample of a possible solution to solve that problem out, which is this solution thing, right? And then the next component of that is to say, if I test this prototype out, this solution, then I can make it into a business model. I can actually make it into something that could be commercially viable. And once you see its commercial viability, you can go out and you can scale it. Now, why I talk a little bit about this is because that's the innovation process through many or pretty much all organizations. They use different names and terms, but that's the basics of it. This funny little loop that you see here, this blue loop, right? That's about people trying things out, making mistakes, relearning it. In the industry, they call it iteration. You iterate through these different components. So there's a lot of testing and learning that you can see goes through each one of those stages, right? Through the insights, problems, solutions, business model stuff. Also, we have great programs out there. So we meaning all of us around the world, you have access to things like creative ideas generation tools, open innovation concepts, design thinking, human design thinking, which is, and each one of these particular tools covers, as you can see, one part of this process. All cool, right? Agile, you see design thinking, human-centered design, agile software, lean startup methodology, fantastic programs on that, business model canvas. Now, most of you would have heard something about these types of programs, so they all exist. And guess what? We're going to talk a little bit about that, but I'm going to be talking about this triangle that I haven't been talking about before. This is the beginning, because often with lots of these different programs, they're all out there, but people don't seem to be picking up and applying them in their work environments. And one of the reasons why I believe is this. This triangle here, right? And this is what we're going to be talking about over the next 40 minutes or so. It's about creating the right culture within our organizations, within our teams, to be able to want to pursue this stuff. Okay, so one of the things with the culture side of it is you can see it deals with mindset. What's your frame of mind like? How do leaders work within the right environments to encourage innovation? How do we create the right environments and systems and processes? How do we get people passionate and gritty to do these types of programs? Because when you have all of that in place, then learning all these new bits of information and applying them in the innovation cycle become easy. And what I'm seeing often, and why people come and talk to me, is they say, we have the programs, but how do our people get into the right frame of mind to be able to embrace these things and move over? How do we create this culture, this values belief system within our people to do that? Okay, so far so good. Cool. Here's what we're going to do next. We're going to talk. This is a lot of information, but it's going to be fun for you. It's going to be informative. It's going to be stuff that you can talk to your friends about later. But more importantly, it's going to be things that I want you to start looking at applying. We're going to talk about mindset, culture, and innovation. And then we're going to talk quickly about these 4 different drivers of innovation. Now, one thing before I get into the meatballs and meat and potatoes of all of this is this is based upon me having to do this type of work. So I was hired by a corporation, a global corporation, to actually build culture within their teams. So this is based around the work that I've been doing. There's other things out there, lots of them, and I'm happy to share that with you. But for this, it's Derek's reality on making things happen as far as innovation culture is concerned. Cool. All right. So first, an activity. Now, Sagar was saying earlier, okay, for those of you that have a pen and a pencil out there and a piece of paper, what I want you to do is I want you to take a piece of paper and I want you in 30 seconds to draw either someone near you or draw yourself, right? And then if you want, you can either put it up on the screen or you can show it to them after the session and ask them for a compliment, okay? So, and just to make you feel comfortable and all of that, look, I gave myself a self-portrait here, okay? So as you can see, it looks exactly like me. Probably I didn't get the left side as good as the right, but I want you to draw it. And does anybody want to show me? Can anybody show me? I mean, you might not be able to. Let's see. Let's see if there's anybody out there that wants to unvisualize themselves. And if not, that's okay. Sagar, do you have a self-portrait?
I'm doing one now.
Excellent. Okay, cool. Let's see. Is there anyone else out there? Cool. All right. So that's 10 seconds left. Okay. Oh, cool. Actually, if you put it closer to your face, because let's
yeah.
see. Ah,
Wait, you see
wow. Not bad. Hey, look, I like it. It says
that?
all the right things. Now, perfect. Good. And who is that a portrait of?
That's me.
See, it looks exactly like you. In fact, if you put that in front of the screen and we're talking, we could never tell the difference. It's good. It's good. It's good. Well done. Now, the purpose of this exercise is number one, to get you to do this, right? The second part of it is for someone to pay a compliment to you. So you get to do that a bit later. There's a very important lesson in all of this. A lot of you, and I can't see all of you on this particular format, but I think a lot of you might have felt a little bit like this, right? You might have gone, oh, are you kidding me? What, I'm supposed to show this to everyone? Oh, okay. So, Sagar, not everyone can see your drawing, but maybe, yeah, maybe maybe you can post it later or put it on an attachment or even attach it and put it into the chat box. Yeah, that would work nicely. But the idea in all of this is important in the sense of we worry about other people's opinions of stuff we do. Now, if all of us were 5-year-olds or 7-year-olds and we were going through this exercise, you'd grab the pen, you draw it, you go, here you go, like here, I'll just do it right now, right? Oh, there, okay, cool. Oh, there, right? That's what you look like. And you go, yeah, you're right, absolutely, fantastic. Kids are creatively confident automatically, right? We, through our systems and learning, worry about whether or not we got the image correct. When it comes to innovating, when it comes to finding new ideas and creating value, if we don't feel comfortable in sharing our ideas with people, how are we ever going to create something new, right? We have to create these environments that allow us to put ideas down quickly, illustrate them, get good positive feedback from others, and then from there be able to go through that long cycle that I introduced you to, right? So it's important to be able to do that. And one of the tools to be able to do that is this thing called mindset. Now, most of you would have heard about this concept of mindset, but I'm going to give you a crash course on it, right? Because I think it's really cool and there's always something to learn as far as mindset is concerned. Mindset is like a lens on how you see the world. And why it's important is it impacts how you behave, how you learn, and how you do things at work. It influences your whole perspective on how you move ahead. And imagine it's like a lens. So here, for example, I'll give you an example here. The world in front of me is all the same, doesn't change. As soon as I take my glasses off, everyone goes fuzzy, right? Then when I put my glasses on, this lens changes and everything becomes clear. But the world hasn't changed. It's just my view of what the lenses have done has changed. And it's the same as in this particular illustration. As you can see the mountain and the water. It's all there, but it's all blurry. And then once it goes through this lens and you look through that lens, that perception changes. So mindset is kind of like the lenses of your mind, and it can change at any point in time, right? And you can allow that to change. So what's this got to do with things? Well, as you can see here, all of these the cities remains the same. The stunt bicycle is doing its thing, right? But how you see it changes depending upon your lens. And you have the power, believe it or not, to change your lens quite rapidly once you get good at it. So I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to give you an example first, right? So take a look at this picture. And what do you see in this picture, right? Because there's two animals you could see in this picture, right? One of them is a frog. The other is a horse. Right. Okay. So one seems a frog. Cool. Good. Growth mindset versus fixed. Great. So now you can see the frog and you can see the horse. Now here's the thing. I'll take it back to this particular picture again. Now, most of you originally, when you looked at this, you would have seen one item first. You would have either seen the frog first or you would have seen the horse first. Now that we understand that there's a picture of a frog and a picture of a horse, when I say, hey, let's look at it from the angle of seeing it as a horse, all of you switch. The frog's disappeared and the horse is there, right? And they go, now let's take a look at it and see it from the view of the frog. And then all of a sudden you switch and then the horse's head disappears. But guess what? Both images are still there. It's just how you contextualize it, how you decide to do it. So when we're talking about stuff, notice that mindset is a bit like this. You can switch between the two, especially once you actually see it. It's very powerful because if you want to get people into the right frame of mind, you have to be able to show them that they have the ability to change it and then give them the tools to be able to do that. But why would we want to do that? Well, here's the reason why. There was some research done um, on what's called fixed mindset and growth mindset work. There's lots of stuff on all sorts of different frames of minds. Just like lenses can change, so can different mindsets. But one of the most popular ones that we use right now is this concept by a lady by the name of Carol Dweck called fixed and growth mindset. And basically she was doing experiments. She was an educational psychologist and she was doing experiments with children and saying, she was giving them very difficult tasks to do and she was watching how they reacted, and some kids were going, oh, this is really frustrating, and other kids were going, that's kind of interesting. And Carol Dweck was saying, why are some kids going, that's kind of interesting, because they should all be going, this is really frustrating. And then she realized something. She realized that the kids that were going and saying, that's interesting, had a different point of view of how they were seeing these problems. Their point of view was everything that they were approaching was dealing with an opportunity to learn and to grow. So, and their whole view on life was not about that's wrong or that's right. Like when you do an exam, did you get 8 out of 10 wrong or right? It was, no, I learned a lot from doing that exam. I learned a lot from doing these tests. And these things that I've learned can make me better. Whereas the other kids were saying, oh, either I got it wrong or right, and wrong is bad and right is good. And all of a sudden I'm trying to convince people of getting a grade, right? All of a sudden the way I'm looking at the world is I'm trying to perform without learning and growing. That's a big deal when it comes to experimenting and testing things out. So a person with a fixed mindset really says everything is predetermined in life and you have to deal with it. And a person with a growth mindset says everything is a learning and growing opportunity. Everything is, right? So when it comes to something like intelligence, a person with a fixed mindset will say intelligence is static. My IQ is my IQ. That's all I got. A person with a growth mindset will say, guess what? Intelligence can be developed. So whatever I'm at, I can still develop it and move forward. Another example is how people look at challenges. A fixed mindset person will look at a challenge and go, there's nothing to learn. It's just a frustrating experience. I have to plow through it and then hopefully it'll go away. But that same challenge with a person with a growth mindset will say, you know what? I don't mind taking on something tough because that means I'm going to learn something and it's going to make me a better person and I'm going to be able to move forward. Can you see how the same situation interpreted in two different ways will get you two really different outcomes? It's a big deal. So, the research basically shows people with a fixed mindset have a tendency to plateau earlier. And because everything is predetermined for them, right? There's nothing about growth, nothing about moving forward. Um, Also, people with a growth mindset, they tend to actually get to higher levels of accomplishment and achievement. Now, does it mean it's a straight rocket? No, life doesn't work like that. But what it does mean is that you can continuously keep taking steps forward and you're going to go significantly further than with a fixed mindset point of view, right? Because everything is about what can I learn? How can I apply it? So I've got a question to say, hey, could we have a hybrid kind of mindset? Well, the hybrid is really about looking at the different circumstances and then saying, is it very, very fixed or very, very, so fixed means it's all predetermined and growth means it's very, sorry, it's all about the learning. And I like this because you've read my slides, right? In between is a continuum. So you can have patches of different things, right? Now, this isn't by any means a comprehensive view, right? But um, it does show it affects your worldview, how you see challenges, how you see obstacles, how you see effort, right? And you can see a fixed mindset is all very tough, and a growth mindset is all about, woo, let's keep learning and growing. And there's different stages in between that, and you can measure yourself on these things. The important part, though, is where do you want to be in all of this, right? Sometimes you might want to be completely fixed. Fine, it's your choice. But remember, it was like that frog and horse picture. Do you want to see things from a point of view of a frog because that's just what you want to do? Or if somebody says no, there's some real benefit in looking at it from the horse point of view, do you want to be able to switch it? The power is knowing that you can, and then the second part is desiring and wanting to do it. Why I spend a little bit of time, I mean, I've spent quite a bit of time on this, is when you're experimenting, when you're trying new things, when you're innovating, when you're creating new value, if you're not about learning and growing, if you're not about finding new stuff, you can't innovate. Because when you have a really good idea, of course, you're going to make a lot of mistakes to figure out where the right answer is. If it's in fintech or if it's in genetic engineering or if it's in biology or art, you don't just practice, 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 and then pull off the masterpiece right away. You need to chisel away and keep learning and developing yourself, right? So this is why the mindset thing is important to understand and appreciate. Quiz time. What kind of mindset do you think you have? You might go, oh, I don't know. Go, that's cool. I've given you a couple of things to think about. And you might go, okay, maybe on some things I'm growth, on some things I'm fixed. So how do I take criticism? Like, when my mom criticizes me, for example, I'd love to say, oh yeah, I say, oh, thanks, mom. This is a great learning opportunity. But actually I go, come on, what do you know? Oh, you're from another generation, right? Yeah. So but then snap, wait, how can I actually pick this up and change it? So we all have these limitations. But now that you understand it a bit more, we can apply it further. Now, this isn't a talk about mindset. This is a talk about culture, right? So how do we develop beliefs and values within our teams and within ourselves to be able to innovate consistently? Oh, sorry. Quick one. For today, try and adopt a growth mindset. Why? Well, because you're going to have more fun. You're going to learn something and you're going to be able to make it up with your friends and you can do the horse frog thing with your friends at dinner tonight or whatever you want, right? The other part that's interesting about the mindset is, people say, well, how do I do it if I really don't believe in it? Well, listen, when you were a kid, you pretended, right? You pretended to behave nicely, you pretended to be interested for an hour. That's the same thing that you do with mindset until it becomes a habit, right? Pretend a little bit, say, what can I learn from this, right? That's the shortest answer to doing it. It's also a hack, but it works effectively in the short term. Now we're going to talk about innovation. There are lots and lots of definitions of what innovation are, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say, for this particular talk and for the stuff that I teach, innovation is about the creation of new value. Now you might go, what, people pay you money to say that? Creating new value, that's it there? What is it? Like, it's got to be more complicated than that. No. Creation is the ability to create, to make something, right? And it's, how do you create new things? How do you put ideas together? That's the first part of innovation. The second part of it is it's got to be new. If it's old value, you're not creating anything, right? So you need to make it new. And the last part of it, it's got to be valuable. So for example, if it's innovation in the financial services sector, you have to create something new that's valuable to the financial services sector, right? It has to be of value to people. If you're just creating stuff, that's good, but it needs to add value to particular components to be able to make it innovative. And so there are lots of great ideas out there, but if it's not adding value, it's not innovation as far as we're concerned. Okay, so we're cool with that. Why do we innovate? There are only 3 reasons why. We can talk for ages about it, right? Um, uh, okay, uh, so um, so the 3 reasons are to survive, to stay relevant, and to grow. So grow kind of fits into the growth mindset thing. To survive is basically, if you're not constantly adding new value to things, then all of a sudden the world will have bigger demands and they'll move right by you. And staying relevant is just as important. How do you stay up to speed with things? There's tons of products that are really good today that in a couple of years' time won't be relevant anymore. And there's examples, and I'm not going to go through all the classic ones. I'm just going to throw in BlackBerry because I like BlackBerry. BlackBerry is actually started in a place called Kitchener Waterloo, which is a 15-minute drive from where I lived in Canada, right? So it's got a dear place in my heart. So BlackBerry was really great and has great phones. It's not that they got crappy phones, but one of the things that they missed was they missed the change in relevance of having a touch screen as opposed to a real keyboard, right? Also, their operating systems, and there's lots of case studies that we can get into, but really they missed some stuff. And all of a sudden, the product that they had wasn't as relevant as the new products that, for example, Apple brought out. And then really the touch screen broke their backs, right? The operating system was one part, but the touch screens was a really good one. Let's see. Okay, now I'm gonna finish the slide and then I'm gonna take a quick look at the chats. Zoom, on the other hand, right? How many of you were using Zoom 4 years ago? I hope it was close to no one, because I sure wasn't, right? COVID happened. That changed the way we played and how we communicated. In fact, if it wasn't for Zoom and if it wasn't for what happened, I probably wouldn't be speaking to you right now, because the way we communicate now, right, it's more relevant in video conferencing to be able to pull people together through this type of product. But then what happened to the other conferencing software that used to be out there? Well, if it hasn't modified, it's not in the playing field anymore. To innovate, we constantly have to see what the market needs. How do we bring it forward? And how do we actually make it relevant to our times? That's why we innovate, right? And what's the next way that we're going to be doing conferences? Is it going to be a hybrid? I don't know. Some people say face-to-face versus video might be a step back. I'm waiting for the Star Trek transporter units, right? I think that's going to be awesome. But I hear that they're not going to be out for a while. However, the speed tubes that are coming out of California and being tested, that could be a way for global transportation once we sort out the COVID thing, right? Who knows? But still, one of the reasons to be able to think about why we innovate in the first place. Okay, next, quiz time again. How many of you think you're innovative? Well, first, I mean, it's going to be hard to gauge, but I'm going to say one thing. How many of you think that innovation is important. So just go, yeah, I think it's important. The, the next part of it um, is okay, how many of you think you are innovative, right? So then, and I don't have the polling set up, so I apologize for that. But and then the third question then is, do you think your organizations or the organizations around you are doing enough to be innovative? Now, out of many surveys, so about 2,000 samples that we've taken, the results kind of fall into these types of categories. 98% of the people say innovation is really important, okay? And usually 50% think they are innovative. And only 2% think that their organizations are doing enough. Okay, it's usually this, like I said, it's been a large sample. And the reason why I want you to think about it is maybe you fall into this pattern or not. Probably you do. But the good news in all of this is if we know and feel that innovation is important, and I can convince you that pretty much all of you are innovative under the right types of circumstances, we can create you to be more and more innovative, then think about how much upside you're going to get by using innovation practices. And all of a sudden, this shows that if organizations aren't doing enough, they're going to in the future, especially since this is going to be more of a demand. It's a positive statement to say, hey, look out. If you want to learn about innovation, this is the right time to do it and the right time to actually grasp these understandings to be able to apply it. Also, this is a quote from Booz and Company, but essentially it says to understand your culture and to drive that is almost more important than just researching and development work, especially when it comes to developing innovation culture. So what's this culture thing I keep talking about? Well, I don't know how many of you skateboard. I do. That's why I've got a bump on my head, and that's why I stopped doing it. But one of the best cultures, I think, of observing. And again, I'm not sure if you have a lot of skateboard parks in Saudi Arabia, but I've got one that's just up the road on Orchard Road here in Singapore. And I love watching the people skateboarding. In fact, there's more and more adults that are trying it. So, but I'm telling them they should be wearing protective gear because they don't know how to fall properly. But one of the reasons why it's such a good culture is because you're learning how to do tricks and you make lots of mistakes before you actually get to be competent at doing the tricks. And the culture, the group around when you actually do a trick or when you do a stunt or when you practice it is extremely supportive. So they encourage you to try things out. They encourage you to make mistakes. They encourage you to actually continuously push yourself. And you can see the people that are out there constantly want to do it. It's one of the most tenacious groups around. Now, I'm not going to show you this video because there's one at the end of the program or at the end of the talk that's 10 times cooler than this one. But essentially, this is a perfect introduction to say skateboarding culture is a good way of actually seeing how innovative cultures start forming themselves. It's a good model to work off of. What is a culture? Culture is a values, beliefs, and behaviors that shape your organization. And different cultures and organizations have different styles. So corporates have tight goals. They got expected returns that they need to do. They need to avoid surprises. They need to try and have predictive behavior. Entrepreneurs, they're busy surviving, right? So they don't always have the ability to keep everything standardized, and people need to multitask as opposed to be able to actually delegate responsibilities. You can see the difference in the types of cultures that are there. And even by looking at it, you can see, which one's going to be the corporate culture here and which one's the more entrepreneurial one, right? Most of you, I hope, are saying, hey, the corporate one's the guy with the tie. But I also know that, entrepreneurs want to be more corporate like. They're suiting up more and they're using all the big buzzwords and they're trying to, but the only reason they're doing that is because they're looking for funding and they want to actually get into the marketplace and they want to grow, right? And businesses and corporates are trying to be more entrepreneurial. So they're like me, and old geese are trying to wear t-shirts and look cool, right? So, but what you do is, what's nice about it is they start picking up the different benefits of both cultures in their behaviors, the values, and their beliefs. My question, though, to you is, how do you know when an organization's culture needs to change? For that, I want to give you a quick case study, a quick story, one of my favorite stories, and it's a real one. It's true. It's not just this fantasy thing. It's called, there's a movie that came out called Moneyball. Moneyball is a movie about an American baseball team called the Oakland A's. If you're into baseball, you'd know about the Oakland A's. If you haven't, it's okay. It's a baseball team. And basically, what you need to understand is that they had a very small, limited budget and were going broke. That's it. And all the other teams had big budgets and weren't going broke. So the Oakland A's might have a $25 million budget. The other teams might have a $125 million budget, but they were all competing in the same baseball fields, right? So which team's going to be more successful? Well, most people say the ones that with the most of the money. And that was the problem. The problem was the general manager was saying to his direct reports, I need more money. And they said, you can't get any more. You're just going to have to play the team with the way you're going to play it. That's it. You don't have any more. And he said, well, we're going to go broke because the fans are not going to come and watch us not win, right? So he had this dilemma of he had to figure out how he could start competing without having additional money. The other problem that he had was his team, the people that he was like his advisors weren't changing. They weren't getting it. They were basically saying, look, we just have to work with what we work. If we fail, we fail. If we succeed, we succeed. And he goes, no, you don't get it. We won't survive if we don't change. So I'm going to play you the conversation. Now, you might know the actor. It's a guy called, what's his name? Brad Pitt. Oh, Brad Pitt. Yeah. I don't know if any of you guys have seen Brad Pitt before, but basically he's having a conversation with his team. And I want you to listen to and think, are they getting that they have to dramatically change or not? Right. So here we go. Let me do that and listen to what he has to say, because it gets really clear that they're not getting that a change has to happen.
We're trying to solve the problem here, Billy.
Not like this, you're not. You're not even looking at the problem.
We're very aware of the problem. I mean,
Okay, good. What's the problem?
look, Billy, we all understand what the problem is. We have to
Okay,
replace...
good. What's the problem?
The problem is we have to replace 3 key players in our
No.
lineup.
What's the problem?
Same as it's ever been. We've got to replace these guys with what we have existing.
No. What's the problem, Barry?
We need 38 home runs, 120 RBIs, and 47 doubles to replace.
The problem we're trying to solve is that there are rich teams and there are poor teams. Then there's 50 feet of crap. And then there's us. It's an unfair game. And now we've been gutted. Like organ donors for the rich. Boston's taking our kidneys. Yankees taking our heart. And you guys are sitting around talking the same old good body nonsense like we're selling jeans. Like we're looking for Fabio. Think differently. We are the last dog at the bowl. You see what happens to the runt of the litter? He dies.
Ooh, right. Okay. So big serious. So I'm sorry. First, I apologize. He does swear. I should have told you he swears a little bit, but it's a serious conversation, right? Because his guys aren't getting it, right? And this is a real situation. And what happens is, I don't know if you've seen it, but if you're into cultural change and you're into how you have to innovate, this is a really good movie to watch. And there's a book as well. So I mean, there's a book like The Story called Moneyball by a gentleman called Michael Lewis. What happens is this, true story. Brad Pitt, the coach, his name is Bean. Yes, he is Mr. Bean. That's legitimate. He runs into this young man who says, look, Mr. Bean, I'm a statistician. I'm a university graduate. I do numbers, and nobody really pays attention to me, but it's an honor to meet you. And you know what? People get hired in baseball for all the wrong reasons. I've been looking at the numbers. They get hired because they look right, they're the right stereotype, they swing the ball properly, but you're not hiring the best players. The best players do things differently. They swing the ball a bit, or swing the bat a bit funny, they throw the ball a bit funny, but the results are better. If you considered, and they said, just consider getting all these outliers, these people that don't really do it the right way, the numbers show that you could win. You would have a number 1 team, or pretty close to number 1 team, and you could afford them because nobody wants them. So guess what? He did that. And the story is about how many people pushed back and refused it, and what he had to do to create a culture where people accepted it. It was tough. It was really tough. The result was this: they started and they were playing worse than they were before they started, right? With the changes. And he persisted on the numbers because he had faith in it. And by the end of the season, they went all the way to the semifinals. That's unbelievable in American baseball to go from the bottom of the rung all the way to the semis. And they lost the semis by this much. And they won over 20 games in a row, which breaks, like that's unheard of in the 150-year history of baseball, right? In fact, it was so impactful that every other team started doing the changes that he did. They started using data and data analytics to make management decisions. This is the beginning of using data to drive your management decisions. It's a major eye-opening experience. And this is what you have to ask yourself is my culture doing this? What's the next generation going to be? So Moneyball is good at seeing the pain that you need to go through to be able to understand what that cultural change is about, but also that if you have the fortitude to carry through on it, you can make it happen. Having said that, how do you make that happen? Here are the shortcuts. The shortcuts that I'm going to give you in all of 15 minutes or less. Oh, are you ready for this? Number one is we're going to be talking a little bit about leadership. Here are 5 great leaders, okay? And if you don't know them, I'll give you a quick history. Anita Roddick opened up a shop called The Body Shop. The concept of that is it was revolutionary at the time because it dealt with cosmetics, but also socially sustainable, environmentally products that are fantastic. Richard Branson from Virgin, Virgin Galactic right now, but also from Virgin Enterprises overall. Warren Buffett, in the finance sector, most of you would know a little bit about Warren, Jack Ma, Alibaba, and Steve Jobs. Now, there's lots of good stories and bad stories with everyone related in these photos. I get it, but they were revolutionary and innovative giants to get where they did. And I could spend an hour on each one of these people and convince you of all the incredible things that they did. And of course, there's 2 sides to the story. What do they have in common? Vision. They had vision in common. And I'm going to take you all the way back now to the 1920s. This guy is called Henry Ford. I don't know if you know about Henry Ford. I don't know if they still have cars. I'm sure they've got, like, we've got a couple cars here in Singapore, and I'm sure in Saudi Arabia you got cars too. But one of the things is that Henry Ford had a big dilemma in the late 1920s. They were going broke. They laid off tens of thousands of people because Chrysler and General Motors were building better 4-cylinder vehicles. And the 4-cylinder vehicles was the bread and butter of the organization. 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder vehicles was the bread and butter. So in the Ford boardroom, all of the advisors of Henry Ford were saying, Mr. Ford, we have to build a better 6-cylinder engine. And there were 4 types of engines: 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, and 8-cylinder engines. The 8-cylinder engines were complex, expensive, something you don't touch, right? The 6 cylinders were where the competition was. And Henry Ford said, no, we have to build a better 8-cylinder engine. We have to build an affordable 8-cylinder engine. And his team came in with a stack of papers going, Mr. Ford, here's all the reasons why it's impossible. And he goes, I don't care. Get me our best engineers. We're going to build one. And so they got the best engineers and they didn't build one. They came up with all the reasons why it was impossible. So Henry Ford said, congratulations, you're fired. Brought in a whole new bunch of engineers. Congratulations, Mr. Ford. Here's all the reasons why you can't build an affordable 8-cylinder engine. Congratulations, you're fired. You get the gist of what happened, right? He said, I'm going to change the rules now. He bought a laboratory near his house, his personal home. He got a group of engineers, a little inexperienced and a couple of experienced ones. They ended up developing an affordable 8-cylinder engine, the one that's sitting in front of you. Irrespective of everyone saying no, it was impossible, they did it. Now, here's the interesting thing. It was so popular that people like bank robbers, and I'm not endorsing crime, by the way, but Bonnie and Clyde, this is a picture of Bonnie and Clyde, famous bank robbers in the United States. They wrote to Henry Ford and said, your car is so amazing. Thank you very much. Now, I say to you, if somebody writes to you and says, this is really amazing, like Bonnie and Clyde, you pay attention. Your innovation has paid off. It's a good thing. This is an attempt at something that is humorous, but if you're not laughing, it's okay. But the point is this, right? Interesting thing. Henry Ford bought the laboratory off of a guy called Thomas Edison. You've heard of Thomas Edison, right? Also, Henry Ford and Thomas Edison were really close friends. So if you think that Henry Ford just did this out of nowhere, no, he worked hard at leading and understanding how to drive innovation processes and inventions. Okay, so Steve Jobs kind of did that, and the gentleman with the motorcycle here is a guy called Rod Lever. Rod Lever is the guy that said, Derek, get out of the operation stuff that you're doing for our company. You need to develop innovation culture for us. And it changed my life, but it also changed the programs that we did. I started doing programs in Japan, China, Malaysia, and Singapore, over 2,000 people. And the results were, I guess, significant enough that I got called to our global team and I needed to explain to them what I was doing. So I'm just a basic guy. I couldn't use too many fancy words, but when the leader gives you the opportunities to do something like that, you know that the leadership is in place. Okay, next thing, environments. How many of you feel like this on a Monday? And then Friday comes along and you feel like this. So wouldn't it be great if it was Monday and you went like this to work, and on Friday you felt like that? That's the power of an environment. And you can shape it. You can shape it through color. You can shape it through social spaces. You can shape it through designing things. What you can also do is you can change the way you do your environments. Like, for example, stand-up meetings. One of the reasons why I'm sharing so much energy is because I'm standing up when I'm presenting to you, right? I'm not sitting down in a lovely, Iron Man gaming chair or anything. I'm actually up here doing the right environment to keep me on top of the presentation. When you're innovating, you need to do that as well. So that could be through stand-up meetings and running your meetings instead of an hour and 30 minutes. It could be doing walking around meetings. It depends upon your environment, of course. And also, when you look at it, how can you reshape the digital experience to encourage creativity and innovation to move forward? One of the best things to do is to do it in coffee houses. And again, I don't know how it works here, but we're starting to be able to meet up to 5 people in a coffee house at a time. And all of a sudden, the meetings that I have are the ones that allow us to interact and move forward. So there's some mechanics on that, but I'm not going to get too much into that. On this, think about what you could do to create your stimulating environment, right? So for example, a lot of people, when with COVID was impacted over here, basically got their laptop, got a lamp from wherever they wanted to, a chair, and then was a basic setup. But to be creative, you got to have something that's comfortable, that the lighting's good, that it's got a good soundscape, you've got plenty of space to work. How can you start creating some of that in your own environment? I mean, now that COVID's a couple of years old, I hope you've gotten some more space and you've started redesigning it for you to be innovative. Systems and processes. One of the keys of knowing about innovation is to know where you want to go. So this is a picture from Alice in Wonderland. It's a kid's story. And basically the cat is saying to the girl's saying she's lost, and the cat's saying, where do you want to go? And she says, well, I'm not really sure. Then the cat says, well, guess what? Then it doesn't matter where you want to go because you're not really sure where you want to be in the first place. And with innovation, it's the same. Where do you and your organization want to be in order to actually drive things forward, right? And it's always good to look at a different organization. So I looked at Tata Consulting. I did some work with them. I looked at Whirlpool, which is an appliance manufacturer, and I worked with Lend-Lease. So I was the head of innovation for this company called Lend-Lease. Now I'm going to skip to 2 quick points here because there's one more section that I want to talk about. Whirlpool. The chairman of Whirlpool and also the CEO of Whirlpool for over 10 years is a guy called Jeff Fettick. I studied the work that Jeff Fettick did because what he wanted to do was, he said, we didn't know all about innovation, but we knew that we needed a good definition. We needed to relate our systems and processes to what was important to us. And then after that, over a series of different projects in 18 months, we started modifying what we wanted to do to create the next 18 months worth of innovation programs. And as we did that year on year for over 10 rounds, they went from just running projects to this last little triangle that you see here, which is an innovation dashboard that they reported to their board of directors on a regular basis. And that's what they do now. So what I say to people is start with what's important to you. This is what was important to us in Lend-Lease, 5 different areas, right? So it's products, networks, getting leaders to understand what we were doing, some systems and processes and culture. And this is what I walked into the board with to say, this is where we started. But 6 months later, it grew to this. It blossomed because all of a sudden, more connections started forming. And we don't have time to go into all of the details here, but what happened was internal and external networks started forming. Our leaders started talking about innovation, understanding, and walking the talk. Our systems started aligning with our key performance indicators, and our people started believing and understanding what was important as far as innovation was concerned. So my take on this for any organization or any team is define what innovation means to you and then create the systems and processes to line that up. Last part before we wrap up, passion. Passion is the fuel of innovation. And I'm not talking about the passion that lasts 2 weeks. I'm talking about the passion that lasts a lifetime or 3 years. That's not, my lifetime isn't 3 years, but if it lasts 3 years, it's much better than the 2-week stuff. And the best thing I can say to you is, you remember when you went to school, and some of you maybe are still in school, and you go to a class and it's 1 hour long, but for some reason it lasts like 17 hours. Like it's so long and so slow, right? And you go to another class that you really like, and it's also 1 hour long, but it only lasts like 5 minutes. And you go, can't, something's wrong with my watch. What's going on, right? When you're inspired, you're on the zone. And when you're in the zone, you do stuff that's passionate. Now, when you're innovating, you need to do stuff that inspires you and what you're passionate about. And on that takeaway, I want to introduce you to this gentleman. All of you know him. You go, no, I've never seen that guy in my life. I go, no, you know him because his name is Max Martin. And you'll still go, no, Derek, don't know. But you would have heard of the stuff that he's done. He's a music producer. He's written songs for Britney Spears, Katy Perry, Pink, I think Dire Straits, Justin Timberlake. He has written over 21 #1 songs, at least in North America and Europe. Okay, so he is a consistent producer of fantastic music, and he only produces music that if you listen within the first 3 seconds, you either love it or you hate it. His career is driven by passion. And I can tell you so much about Max because he's such an interesting person and nobody knows about him, but he's the man. He's the man that you're listening to when you're listening to pop music. Having said that, I want you to think about one thing. What is Max Martin known for? His long hair, his ability to write #1 songs, or his fashion sense? That's right. It's his ability to write #1 songs because he's filled with passion. Okay, last thing. How do we summarize all this stuff about innovation, about testing something out, about trialing it and making mistakes, about consistently being persistent and passionate to get it done? What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a video by Tony Hawk, the skateboarder. He's given an impossible task to do. And what I want you to do is I want you to watch and say, how does he respond to the challenge? What did he learn? Did he give up? Did he try? Did he get to the impossible challenge or not? The video itself is a couple of minutes long, and then we'll leave it. I'm a little bit over, but then we'll leave the last round for any particular questions, okay? All right, so here we go.
Am I looking forward to this? To be honest, when I realized that this got the green light and that Sony's behind it, I had intense anxiety for 2 days straight. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Is it real? Will it really work? I have no idea what to expect on my first attempt. Basically, this ramp is a vertical spiral, a sideways loop. I asked Tony P if he could make this a reality, and he and I brainstormed, and he's on his way.
Yeah, this is weird. I mean, I've never seen anything like it before.
Yeah, I have nothing to base it on.
It's definitely different, you know, and it's tricky. The main thing is, like, how am I gonna brace it?
I wish someone could give us, we need a scientist. We need, like, Bill Nye here. The general concerns with something like this, well, one, not sticking to the wall and just falling down to the bottom. I think the challenge is coming out and not actually just shooting out at the end. That's going to be a lot of momentum that you're building up in that tight space, and it's got to go somewhere. projecting. I have no idea what to expect. If I let the anxiety take over, then it's going to be worst case scenario, because that's all I've thought about. But I do think it's possible. I think I'm capable of doing it, and that's what I'm going to hold on to. But yeah, I'm scared as hell. I didn't really know what it would look like when it's finished. I think it looks pretty awesome. I mean, it's like watch what you wish for. As far as I know, no one's done anything like this, and so people keep asking me questions like, well, how do you approach it? How do you, I don't know. I'm just gonna find out the hard way, I guess. It feels like the first time I tried the loop. Like I just walked up to it and it was like, holy shit, what have I done? But I'm up for the challenge. Second try. Can't figure that out.
Nobody at the wheel, somebody hold the controls, give me something real. Somebody grab the wheel, somebody aim the machine to something real. Somebody step on the brakes, someone who feels take the wheel, someone blow me away. Something to give me the shake, somebody real take the wheel, get me out of this place.
I think Tony's gonna do it. I think it's just gonna be hanging that angle.
That was like a half head slide, knee slide. But hey, I didn't hit my hip, so success. Okay, get these pads out of here.
It's coming down. He's got it.
He's got it.
Is anybody even driving this thing? Is anybody even driving this thing?
Here we go.
Is anybody even driving this thing? We keep on calling, but there's no one listening. Does anybody really know anymore where we're going and all what we're all headed for? Is anybody even driving this thing?
He did it. Crazy, right? But all the things about, like, if you watch it 100 times like I do, you know, he keeps trying it and he keeps learning a little bit every time. So every sequence, there's a bit of learning, a bit of testing, a little bit of pushing forward. And before that, remember, a couple of days before that, he goes, I have no way of figuring out how to do this. I'm just going to give it a go, right? That's the essence of the culture that we're trying to create, right? You have to do it safely within your boundaries. But if you do that, all of a sudden, as you can see, you're starting to do impossible tricks, impossible things that you would never imagine. So as I said, you know, it's the best and worst of times. But once you get connected, once you drive innovation forward, well, then people are engaged. They're trying new stuff. They're moving forward. All of a sudden, they're taking the leads on thinking about more amazing things to do. And then you all end up being happy little penguins, right? So really important. So I'm sorry, I've gone a little bit over time, but I did want to get the message out. So keep driving, keep innovating, and keep developing those cultures. Cool.
Thank you very much, Derek. That was an incredible talk. I really enjoyed that. That was a really interactive and really insightful presentation. So thank you. And the fact we've got everyone joining, even though we've gone a little bit over time, shows how much everyone enjoyed this talk as well. So thank you very much, Derek. I appreciate everyone. Thank you very much for joining. I appreciate we have got a little bit over time and some of you may need to get back to work. If you need to log off, that's completely fine. We do have a few questions, Derek. So I just wondered if we could just get a few answers to those questions as well. Just before we go on to the questions, I do want to remind everyone that this is part of the Fintech Tour 21, the largest cluster of Fintech events in the Middle East. So we do have some other really good talks coming up. If you want to hear more great talks like you've heard from Derek today, then go to fintech-tour.com to see all the events which are happening. We've got a great talk from the head of innovation at JP Morgan this afternoon about payments. So that's building on what Derek said about looking at innovation in a large organization. You'll get some of that from them. We've got a talk about InsurTech this evening, and then we've got talks throughout the rest of the week. So definitely log on to that. Derek, I'm just going to go through a few of the questions. We've got some really good questions here to ask.
Yeah,
first two, we could probably possibly take them together, but it's around if you're in an innovative organization, yet your direct manager has more of a fixed mind. How do you influence people in the organization? I guess it's maybe not just your manager, but how do you influence people in the organization to become more innovative? I think that's also in the case of if you're working in an organization which may not have that innovative culture, how can you as an employee influence that culture?
Excellent. Okay, no, good question. So so first, I mean, some of this is being able to talk about influence, your circles of influence. Like, so what can you influence around you? And also, one of the easiest ways of uh, of being able to help people see the benefit of being more innovative is to understand maybe a problem or a challenge that they're working on, right? Something that they're going, oh, this is frustrating. I don't know how to deal with it. And then look at saying, okay, well, what if we looked at it from a couple of different angles and we tried something out that was, let's say, low risk, but it solves the problem? Would that be of interest to you, right? And so you don't even have to get into, oh, you're a fixed mindset, I'm a growth mindset, you don't want to learn. You don't even need to get to that, because what you're doing is you're doing something that's common. You're solving a problem or a challenge for them, and then they'll automatically move towards that, right? And then as you're doing that, I find often then people go, so how did you figure it out this way? You go, well, sometimes when you look at things from a different point of view, it's of benefit, right? The other thing, though, is you do have to be a bit like with Tony Hawk. You're going to take some hits on it, right? There's no perfect that you can't convert someone um, from one point of view to the other unless they really want to, right? Like you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink unless it's really thirsty. So you find out where the thirst is, and then you chip away a little bit at that. The same thing with organizations. Like often I hear from organizations they say, we've always done it this way, and so that's just the way it's going to be. For example, the construction industry is like that, and that's where I was doing a lot of my work. And I go, okay, so look, that's fine if you're happy to build a $1.5 billion building and then spend a year and a half repairing defects and losing money on it. Okay, that's cool. But what if we didn't do that? What if all of a sudden we only spent a month on doing defects because everything was prefabricated and quality was already improved, and we use modular systems? And then they go, what, you can do that? I go, well, yeah, China did it on this project and someone did it on that project. Do you want to try it? All of a sudden, then, yeah, they wanted to try it out, right? So it's how you package it. And it's also you choose your battles. You don't try to, this isn't, there's this North American saying, it's not snake oil, where it cures everything. It just, you find the little bits where it's the most appropriate, and then you chisel at that and you test it out.
Thanks, Derek. A great answer. And I guess the other question is from the other view. So if you're the CEO or a founder for an organization and you want to develop that innovation culture, but appreciate that there is a lot of changes which need to come to that. There's a lot of cost which is required to that. So how do you sort of balance that with the productivity? How do you manage that? Well, how do you start that journey firstly, and how do you make sure you're doing it in an efficient way? And as you said, not spending billions on building a new innovation center.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things is I would go back to, yeah, I can scoot back to this. The looking at how a company like Whirlpool did it. Now, first of all, innovation isn't an instant fix type of thing. It's a longer term journey. So for example, when I was asked to take on innovation, I said to the CEO, I'll do it on the condition that it's a project that lasts a minimum of 3 years. And you don't have to keep me for 3 years. You can fire me whenever you want, but the commitment to the project needs to be at least 3 years, because it takes at least that amount of time to put the grassroots in, right? Which means it's not seen as a special project that the senior management want to do, and then it goes away in 6 to 12 months time, and there's another one. So people understand first it's a longer term commitment. And then the second part of it is realizing why you want to innovate in the first place. Why do you want a growth mindset, right? And often understanding what that why is and then being able to communicate it clearly to the people is your first step. So for example, I was saying it's a longer term process. But first, what's your first 12-month process? Where do you want to be in 12 months, even though you've committed for a longer period of time? What I often do is I ask people to define what innovation means to you and to your senior team and to the board. So you're all at the top singing this from the same sheet. The second part then is to be serious about it, which means put it into something like key performance indicators. So then all of a sudden teams will go, wait, this is impacting my revenue, this is impacting my job performance. How do I go about doing that? And as you do that, build in the support structure, the communication, your HR support, your coaching to help people be successful, so nobody's going to fail as long as they put an effort in. And then they'll understand what innovation is, some small steps that they can do to be more innovative or to get a growth mindset. And once they're reinforced that that's the direction, then you can take a bigger step forward for the next part, right? But I always start with the definition and getting people to commit. And for me, the easiest way is, it's not easy. The easiest way to make it happen is KPIs, but then to get people to deliver on the KPIs is not easy. That takes a bit of time.
Great answer. Thanks, Derek. Just going through a few of the other slides. Can we obtain the slides? Yes, the recording will be provided after as well. So we've got that. We'll have that on the YouTube channel, so you can go through the presentation and the slides there. One question from Mohammed. Nowadays, with technology growth with limited capabilities, what are the tools or channels that can help people to be more innovative? So I guess a lot of what you said is around just having the right mindset, right? Or are there other specific tools that people can use as well?
So look, I guess the first, I'm sorry, don't get dizzy on me, but I'm gonna go to that little chart here. This really is, look, I can't say it's everybody's solution, but it hits almost 85 to 90% of all the stuff you hear about, right? So Mohammed, when you're talking about what kind of tools can you use, more the content or the information is about creativity and idea generation, open innovation, which is looking at innovation programs from different organizations and pulling them in and trying to implement them. And there's the open innovation is a hot topic. Design thinking is what's called human-centered design. It's understanding customer-centered, like this, that the customers have points of view, and then you can understand and learn about that particular process. There's great organizations that teach that. Agile is another methodology. Lean startup is also a very good methodology for entrepreneurs and testing things out. Business model canvas, I think, is a bit of an unsung hero. It's like taking a business plan, like a 200-page business plan, and crunching it into a one-page mind map, right? That you can do multiple scenario analysis on. It's taught by so many places, but it's not implemented a lot more, and I think it's a very powerful tool that if you can use. And when I do it, yeah. So that's kind of, if you want to take a screenshot of that's not a bad place to start on the content. But then, and there's tech solutions for all of that. You can get an app on it, you can get a software program on it, you can do university courses on these different things, but that's where you want to start from. And then use whatever learning methodology works best for you.
I'm just going to make thanks, Derek. I'm just going to make a plug there for one of the reports which we've written, which is the FinTech Access Guide. And if you go to the second, I've just added a link in the chat box there, but if you go to the second section there, it essentially provides a framework for how to develop a FinTech solution. And there we do a lot of talking around what the business model canvas is, in addition to the other areas around lean startup. So I certainly would recommend having a look at that as a resource if you're interested in developing a FinTech solution, because we do incorporate a lot of that. But I think the important part, and what we've got from this session, is it's got to start with the culture. It's got to start with the right mindset, the innovation culture mindset, to be able to then build everything which comes from that as well. So I really, really appreciate that. Thank you again, Derek, for staying with us a little bit longer than normal. Thank you, everyone. We're still got loads of participants joined here, so everyone was really, really interested in this. As a last question, Derek, I just wanted to ask you, if somebody is interested in learning more about this topic, are there any resources that you could recommend that they look at or sort of think about?
Yeah. So So a couple of things on innovation culture. Probably what I've done was I've pieced together different bits myself. So please refer to this. There's I've got my QR code here, so it's linked the LinkedIn thing. Also, and this I don't know, is it a plug? Isn't it a plug? There's the innovation culture course. So it's a 2-day program, right? So that's by SMU, but you can go to the SMU site and it gives you a good summary. So you don't have to, I'm not saying, Michael will kill me if I'm saying don't take the course. Take the course, for sure, take the course. But if you want to understand it and the crux of what we were talking about, on the SMU site, the summary of the actual program is there. So it's already in a nice 1.5 page. And that's a really good place to start. References would be, as I said, I would look at Moneyball, the book Moneyball, right, by Michael Lewis. I would look on Mindset. There's a book by Carol Dweck called Mindset, right? And that's quite good. This is very good. There's also a book by Angela Duckworth called Grit. And that is about combination of passion and perseverance. That is also an excellent reference. Now, I'm giving you sources that are quite commonly available. Like you can go to bookstores or Amazon and get that. And I think start with those ones first, and then when you're looking at more formalized structures, just reach out to me and I can give you more academic papers if you're interested in that. But those are good introductions to these types of concepts.
Fantastic. Thank you. On that note, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. Thank you all again for joining and sharing your lunchtime time with us. And a special thanks, Derek, again, for an amazing session. This was definitely one of the most innovative sessions, interactive sessions that we've had in the FinTech Tour. So really appreciate your time and putting together this presentation for everyone. And we look forward to doing more things with you in the future as well.
And thank you all for letting me take up so much of your time. It's been a real privilege. And I greatly appreciate the opportunity. This has been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Look forward to seeing everyone at future FinTech Tour events. Thank you.
Okay, cheers. Thank you.